What's up, folks? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the 3-6 Mafia Greatest Hits album, most known hits. Now, this came out a couple months after their most known unknown album, which up to that point that was their largest album. And I kind of figured, 3-6 Mafia between like 2005 and like 2008, that's where they had their most commercial success. But the thing about them is they had been around since like the mid early 90s, so at least 94 or so. Mystic Styles, I reviewed that way back in 2015. Um, that was kind of some of their breakout stuff, and they might have done mixtapes before that. So Juicy J, DJ Paul, Gangsta Boo, Lord Infamous, all those folks, Crunchy Black, they had all been around for quite a while. But here's the thing about most known hits, it does not really include very many hits from their recent stuff. So it only has one hit from their Choices 2 album that came in 2005. And then it also does not have anything from Most Known Unknown because they didn't know quite yet what was going to be the hits. So obviously Poppin' My Collar was not released as a single yet, and it might have been pretentious for them to drop Stay Fly, but it has a lot of their hits with the exception of the album Mystic Style. So it doesn't have that on there, and it doesn't have Most Known Unknown, but it has quite a few. It has like the Tear the Club Up Thugs, and it has like the Hypnotized Camp Posse and some stuff like that. So there are some hits in here that kind of are just one shot things, and it's interesting just because I'm glad that they were able to actually put out a greatest hits album, because with 3-6 Mafia, the thing about it is sometimes they did not get past the first single, so it seemed difficult even them having like 7 or 8 albums by that point when they only really had like the first single that came out. For example, like the Unbreakables that had the hit single Riding Spinners with Lil Flip, but it didn't have anything else. So that was kind of a waste of an album almost, to sit there and only have one hit and then have to figure out what else was a smash from that project. But then that kind of happened with like the Choices 2 album. I was kind of surprised that Who I Is wasn't on there. That was a pretty good hit, but there were other hits from Choices 2, but they only put Squeeze It on there, and Mystic Styles wasn't on there. So it's very varied in terms of like what you're gonna find. You may be surprised if you think, oh yeah, this was a smash hit, but then it's not actually on the album. So I mean that's kind of what I thought as to why I didn't review this in the past, was because I didn't agree with some of the hits on here. I felt like, obviously there were songs I liked off the Unbreakables and Crazy in the Last Days, and but one album that they do pretty much get the nail on the head is the When the Smoke Clears album, the album that came out in the year 2000. So it has Sippin' on Some Syrup on here. It has Who Run It. It has Tongue Ring, which is a really good song, but it doesn't have an abundance of other albums that kind of did that. I feel like basically the best album that you're going to find that they included in this greatest hits package is the When the Smoke Clears album. I mean, most of the other stuff is just kind of 1 or 2 hits, but that one had 4. And there are some new recordings on here. Like there's a Project Pat song, if you're wondering what he was up to around that time. And then there's a song Let Me Hit That, which can be, drugs, women, this whatever they said at the beginning that it can be what you want it to be. I mean, the new recordings are good. I mean, both the beats on there, that's the 3-6 Mafia I enjoy. I mean, I liked 3-6 Mafia back in 2000 and 1995 and such, but they really did once they crossed over. I didn't feel like they sold out too much in 2005 and 2008 and even 2003. They didn't really have too many records that they were selling themselves out and they were trying to become politically correct, or dealing with public relations, or just becoming too commercial. I mean, I feel like songs like Stay Fly and Poppin' My Collar were just their version of commercial, and it works. I mean, I didn't have too many complaints about those projects. I reviewed just a few days ago, I reviewed the Most Known Unknown album, so I'll let you kind of know. So yeah, they have an Oscar. They got an Oscar. Hard Out Here for a Pimp was not a bad song either. But to talk about this project, yeah, this is kind of so just to go through the list of some of these. I really didn't like the chapter 2 world domination songs. Those are probably my least favorite of the package. I mean, basically none of those songs I really enjoyed. There's 6 songs out of 17 I didn't wind up liking, and all of the chapter 2 world domination songs are ones I didn't like. There was one from the Unbreakables, which, like I was saying before, they didn't really have the hit singles off of the Unbreakables. So Riding Spinners was like the only hit, but Testing My Gangsta was a truly annoying song just because of like the kind of almost ghoulish kind of background vocals. There was something in the production that did not match, and it felt like the beat as a whole they just could have done a better job considering what they had done with it. And then I didn't really like the Hypnotized Camp Posse. I mean, Ass and Titties is a it's decent song, but it's not really up to par with some of the other songs that they do for the ladies, like Tongue Ring and Two Way Freak, Baby Mama, Squeeze It, and Slob on My Knob. You know, like some of those, they just, I mean, normally I was surprised at the number of songs for the ladies that they had in the beginning years, so they didn't really do as much pretty much from like the Unbreakables forward. And I was kind of, Choices to the Unbreakables, Most Known Unknown, and Last to Walk. They didn't have like that kind of greasy and juggalo chick kind of feel. It's a low key, not necessarily hood rap, but just some, like underground woman type thing, someone who is like a juggalette or something. Songs like Tongue Ring and stuff like that, they just were more accommodating for that, but didn't, just for me to say Ass and Titties wasn't it, but um, Hypnotized Cash Money was that probably had too many folks on the song, and I didn't like the production on there. And then there's one other song I can't remember. Testing My Gangsta, Hypnotize, Cash Money, and yeah, so that's the 6 songs. But to talk about it a little bit further, other songs I wasn't quite as wowed by or as bewildered by, the song "Who Run It," which is the lead single off of "When the Smoke Clears." That's really kind of a mellow, almost just a real not so much thunderous kind of song from 3 6 Mafia. I mean, that was their breakout album up to that point, but it's so visible how much better that Sippin' on Some Syrup is than Who Run It. And it's the same thing with Tongue Ring. I mean, both those songs just fit that much better. I mean, it's like a decent club song, but it really feels like so just out of place. I mean, that's really the thing is uh, I don't know about the production behind that and just everything else. It was kind of trying to be like a crunk song, but it somehow wasn't that motivating. But then I did like Put Ya Signs, which was kind of like a combination of like Sipping on Some Syrup and then Who Run It. It probably did it a little bit better. It felt like that was a more voracious kind of club song and more something for crunk and that kind of early crunk before Lil Jon and stuff that kind of put that sort of stuff on the map. So they definitely had those type of songs, but they didn't do it that much. They really didn't have too many, fuck that shit up, fuck that bitch, fuck that hoe type stuff. They didn't really do that much on this album. I mean, really, the greatest hits, they didn't have like most of those. I mean, I guess Hit a Motherfucker or Hit a Motherfucker, and, but other than that, it just is kind of, this was more kind of low key, kind of for women kind of thing. Testing My Gangsta was not that riotous a song. Riding Spinners was just a car song. Sipping on Some Syrup was a drug song. So, really there were not many hits that, 3 6 Mafia is known to be able to kind of like get like some real uplift, not uplifting, but just uproar type songs, uproarious kind of ferocious kind of songs, and there just were not that many on here. Like I feel like Side to Side kind of did that, and there were other ones. I just can't think of them. I mean, they're known for that sort of stuff. Like that's why I think Who I Is should have been on there, but it wasn't. But yeah, all right. So just to talk about some of these now, I'm gonna list like the 11 songs out of 17 I enjoyed. So Squeeze It, Slob on My Knob, Riding Spinners, Baby Mama, Tongue Ring, Sipping on Some Syrup, Don't Turn Around, Who Run It, Let Me Hit That, Put Ya Signs, and Two Way Freak. That's most of the album, but I can't quite give this project a 10 just because it kind of sags a bit. And I was looking for like that. The thing about 3 6 Mafia is up to this point, I mean, they were underground, but this is what happens when an underground musician group puts out a greatest hits album when they don't quite have smash hits to their name just quite yet. I mean, they have underground hits, but it's just all very word of mouth and kind of play it by ear type stuff more so than actual this is the number ones, which this album was not called number ones. It was just called most known hits, which kind of means the stuff that is probably talked about the most. So that's why I think, obviously songs like Stay Fly, Pop in My Collar, Lolly Lolly, some of these other ones. I mean, Riding Spinners was probably one of the biggest songs, and then Sipping on Some Syrup, but both those are at the very beginning. So this is kind of, it's very, you would think some of the songs that you like but other people don't like, that's just kind of the thing. It's very kind of this I can't think of the word. Um, it's very selective and kind of picky about what sort of stuff. So, I mean, there are hits, but this is disappointing that they could not. I should be giving this, considering how much I like 3 6 Mafia. I feel like I should be giving this album a 10 out of 10, but it's more like going to get like a 7.5 just because they're underground. And up to this point in 2005, they were mostly underground, dropped like maybe one or two singles, and mostly underground hits, just stuff that was kind of low key and not really heard about and not really talked about on like a front type level type stuff. But I mean, that's just kind of what it was. So that's what you get from like a greatest hits album from someone that's not really mainstream. So it's a nice twist. It's definitely a nice twist to kind of see how that works. But if you're not like in complete agreement, it may lessen the deal, which is kind of what it did with me. Because there's songs by 3 6 Mafia that I like on here that just were not on here. And like I feel like the stuff from Mystic Styles should have been on here. There were better songs on the Unbreakables. There were a couple songs on Crazy in the Last Days, like the song that they did with Twista. I can't remember what that one's called. Smoked Out, Loked Out, and you know, obviously there might have been other songs off of When the Smoke Clears that could have worked on there. I mean, they nailed When the Smoke Clears, but just the other stuff, this is like I'm thinking, wow, this is 3 6 Mafia's greatest hits, and I'm not like bewildered by this. That's just kind of the thing. But so I'm gonna give this album me liking 11 out of 17. I would say if I would have liked like 14 out of 17, I probably would have given it a 10. I'm just going to give it a 7.5 just because it's still, I mean, I feel like I do like the song Who Run It, like I said, but it's not quite a knockout. It's not like a 10 out of 10 song for me. I don't really rate the songs. If I like the song, I'll add it to the score, but it's not one of my favorite 3 6 Mafia songs. And, it's kind of the same thing with like Two Way Freak. So these are songs I like, but they're not first on my list to listen to. So this is kind of, it's 3/4 of the way through. I mean, 7.5 is still decent for a great. I mean, it's decent for a regular album, but for greatest hits, it's kind of like, hey, there's something wrong with this picture. That 3 6 Mafia, I'm not like I said before, just it's not a perfect 10. Like Eminem, I think I would give Curtain Call a 10 and 50 Cent's Greatest Hits a 10, but they just don't quite have it. That's the thing. So, but they do. I mean, there's plenty of 3 6 Mafia songs I actually enjoy. So that's just kind of the thing, is just to kind of say that they're not really a singles group. I mean, that's kind of the thing. And they don't appear like the radio singles is the reason why you should be liking these folks. Like, I don't really remember Slava on My Knob being released as a single. I mean, I just felt like that was kind of a word of mouth song. That was just something that just enough people played that it became a single later, but it wasn't like that was the song right off the bat that they released. And the songs like that, just more word of mouth stuff. So I'm gonna give the Social Score like an 8, just because I mean there's enough times. I mean, minus like the When the Smoke Clears album, there weren't really like too many projects that got more than a few singles. So that was their biggest one, besides like Most Known Unknown. So that is kind of the thing. So uh, I mean, they have enough hits, but it just depends. I don't know how many folks are gonna like every song for song for song on this. So this is kind of, I mean, there's enough on here. Squeeze It, songs for women that are not like frou frou and relationship and kind of boo booed up kind of stuff. There's just songs for guys about girls, in other words, that sort of stuff. Squeeze It, Ass and Titties, Slob on My Knob, Tongue Ring, songs like that. But then there are songs like Testing My Gangsta and Riding Spinners and that sort of stuff. So there's just varieties in terms of that to where you'd find something, but it doesn't quite feel as complete as it should. So that's why I give it an 8. But all right, so subscribe for more fun. 7.5 score, 8 social.